Welcome back to Brow Education. We have Renee here, and I'm so grateful to have you back for season 3. Thank you for being on today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be a part of this.
Me too. So, obviously, everyone knows the Brow King. The reason that I am even laminating today, because I think your training was the first training I ever took for brow lamination. So I always tip my hat to you for kicking that off and getting me kind of included. And then here we are years later, and you have your own line, which is even more cool. And a product that I definitely use regularly in my studio. I actually even was at a local beauty school recently and I did a demo with your line, and it was so fun chatting about it and having them recognize you and just like, I don't know, building the community. And it's so fun when I have like all the connections and everything kind of like coming together. So I figured one thing before we get into all of the juicy topics that we had just discussed before we hopped on is maybe just like paint us a little bit of a picture and go over kind of who you were before you got into the brow world.
Yeah. So originally I was a professional opera singer.
I love that fact.
Yeah, it's very it feels like a different life, but I just grew up always as a creative kid and, kind of like head in the clouds. I came from parents that always encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do, but whatever I was doing, just make sure that I was 100%. So I grew up playing instruments and playing piano and then singing and then in high school my teacher was like, "I think you can sing opera." I was like, "Okay, opera. I don't know anything about opera, but let me get into it." And then
Yeah.
I trained really hardcore for like a solid 6 years and then got a full ride scholarship to University of the Pacific, actually, which is up north near you in Stockton.
Okay. Okay,
And
yeah.
yeah. And then I went to school there. And then after school, I was pursuing being a professional singer. And kind of the route to being a professional singer is kind of crazy because the male voice doesn't actually develop until age 35.
I
So
didn't know that.
really from like age 22 to 35, it's really about like studying roles, continuing to train. And, this kind of vocal training is insane. It's almost kind of like an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No, I think about the artist that I was then versus the artist that I am now, and I just think that I had a lot of maturing to do, and I feel like you have to be super disciplined in a different way to know that like what you're working toward isn't going to come to you right away. And now that I'm older, I realize like, okay, this makes so much sense in business and what I'm dealing with now. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's who I wasn't as an artist back then. And then I decided, what's the other thing that I love? And what the other thing was that I love is products, and I love skincare. I didn't know that I liked brows back then,
Me
but
either when I got started. I feel like the skincare is what I kind of we tiptoe in.
yeah, exactly. And for some reason, I don't even know why, but when I went into beauty school, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a spray tanner. I'm gonna be the biggest spray tanner there ever was because I was obsessed with being tan too. And then I want to do facials and I want to like maybe mix my own products. I didn't even know what product creation was back then, but that's originally when I went in. You don't even have to be licensed to be a spray tanner. So I don't know who the hell was telling me like, you know, what to do. But I went through beauty school. And then in beauty school actually is when I decided that I really loved brows.
Okay.
And I remember, like in most beauty schools, and I'm sure with you too, you have to kind of like check off. You have to do a certain amount of facials, certain amount of, da, 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 da. I remember speeding through all of those and being completely done in the last 2 months. I was like, "Okay, these last 2 months, I'm only gonna do brows now that I got all the other stuff." So, I don't know what it was, but I think I always fell in love with, like, the detail of, like, doing eyebrows. Like,
Yeah.
it forces you to be so, like, detailed really with
100.
everything. Yeah, and I love that it's very much like it's like a puzzle. I like to say brows are like a puzzle. Like it's like, how do I make my client happy while making them feel comfortable, while making the brows look beautiful, while making the brows look even, while continue to build a relationship with the client. And this was something that I felt like I was really in love with. Also, I skipped a step between getting my license and being an opera singer. I actually was in the business of beauty. So I started in the retail stores.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And I started as a part-timer, then I went to full-time, then I went to assistant manager, then I went to manager, then I went to corporate, and then on a larger, more corporate scale, I was doing corporate beauty for these really big skincare lines. I did education, and I did business development and marketing. So this was actually a very key component to my career also because I learned what a P&L sheet was, how to
Huge.
huge, yeah, and I worked for such a small indie company back then that they would give the store managers, like, access to P&L, so
Wow.
they would give you, like, a percentage for your labor. They would say, like, "Okay, this is your percentage of or this is your sales, and of that, this percentage would be for labor, this percentage would be for utilities." So, it was actually a really amazing learning lesson, and I
No
liked it
kidding.
as, like, almost kinda like being in business school.
Yeah. Well, and I think with most of us as small business owners, like, it's so scary because it's yours, like, it's your income that you're seeing. It'd be kinda cool to get the information without it being obviously, like, it's tied to your paycheck and everything, but it's kind of nice to see it all from a outside perspective, just learning it without it being, like, emotionally attached to you, like, your livelihood.
Yeah, it's like Monopoly money, you know? It's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
exactly.
yeah, this is
Yeah,
so"
you're like, "Oh, this is so cool to look at."
So I was on the business side, and then I got my license, and then, I graduated, I worked for this really big line, also corporate beauty, and it was a brand new concept that was opening on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and it was for a brow position, and they said,
Okay.
"We're gonna have you as our go-to brow person because this is a new concept for us," and it's a big cosmetic line out there now that actually dipped into brows for, like, a second, and then it, like, flopped, went away.
See.
Yeah, but I
Almost
was
too early, maybe?
exactly, yeah. But I was promised, like, "Yeah, you're gonna be our go-to guy in Beverly Hills. We're gonna send you press. We're gonna send you celebrities. You're just gonna be our go-to brow guy." So, I actually got my hands on a lot of different brows. I got amazing training too because this was a global concept for this other line, and they had a really big brow studio in China and in Japan and in Europe and in
Wow.
Spain. So in doing that, they had all these people that came and trained me to do brows. So that was actually part of like how I learned to do brows. And then after that, the concept flopped and they were like, well, we know that you're a retail manager in your past career. So why don't you just manage the store? Like you can just, do inventory. And I was like, you know what?
You're like,
No,
"I've done that, I'm good."
I'm not gonna do that. So after that, I kind of bounced around to like a couple different salons. I was doing lash extensions for like a second after that.
Okay.
And that was actually a really crazy experience too. Like it's this really big lash studio back then that was on Melrose. And the guy was like, okay, I know you've never done lashes before, but like you're cute and you're giving me vibes. So I'm going to hire you. And I
You're
always
like,
think that.
"Okay."
Yeah, I always thinking that, like, what kind of hiring practice is that?
Right. No, literally.
Yeah.
Vibes. That's it.
I just got to a point where I was kind of at this other salon and I was working for someone else, and it was just really poorly managed and really poorly run, and an incredible artist and a very well-known artist. But I was like, "You know what? I could do this on my own, and I think I
Yeah,
can do this a lot better. And maybe I'll fail, I don't know, but I just feel like I need to try it." So that's when I opened Brow Down Studio in 2016. Um, After that, it just, like I just hit the ground running. I was doing free brows, free facials. I, like, set up a table. I was doing facials back then. I set up a table at Whole Foods, and I just did free facials. Um,
that's so smart.
I was, like, doing all these crazy things. I would go on Instagram in 2016, there was, like, geotags. You remember when
Yeah,
geotags were like a thing? So I would be like, "Okay, who's the girl that I wanna work with? I wanna work with the Equinox girl." So I would go to, like, downtown LA, Equinox, and I would click on the geotag, and I would just literally fire off all the likes on all these people to get attention to my page.
totally.
And then that's how I built my bookings, and then, 3 months after opening Brow Down Studio, we became a profiting company, and then,
Wow.
yeah, it just really took off. It just fast forward to, like, me being fully booked, needing to raise my prices, needing to hire more people, and then, yeah, that's like, the rest is history. We have 2 lo
Love that.
yeah,
And
so
you're going on this will be next year will be your 10th year?
next year will be 10
That's
years.
so exciting.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you, it's insane, time flies.
Oh my god, no, literally. Never more true than once you said hit the ground running and then it's just there you go.
Exactly.
I love that so much, and I think it's so inspiring because I think one of the things I talk to my students a lot about is every little bit can be building blocks for your business, for everything. So, it's fun hearing your background because it's even though things don't necessarily at the moment feel connected, you look back and you're like, "Wow, all of these things were so connected." The patience that you learned from your opera singing and having to still train even if you weren't quite at the age that you were needed to be at yet, and learning the background of the business, like it's so funny how everything really comes together and builds to what you ultimately needed for what you're doing now. I think that's
Yeah.
a great lesson for anyone starting out to kind of hear because it does feel a little discouraging in the moment when you're like, this isn't what I want, this isn't happening, but looking back.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And every time that I'm in like the thick of something really crazy, I always rather than being like, because it's so easy to want to fail.
Oh my god, yeah.
But I always think of like, okay, what's the learning lesson? Like, what am I supposed to be learning right now? And that
Yeah.
helps shift your mindset a little bit. And when I look back on my career and all of these things and all of these funny stories that I have, I always think of like, what is the thing that I learned from that? And, like I think it's like one sentence that you learn from all your experiences. And it basically it comes down to that one sentence and then it helps build.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, like, just being open. I feel like you're right, when, like, the fact that we wanna fail, we kinda close ourselves off to learning, and I think that's the biggest, like, no. Like, the second you're closing yourself off, you really are doing yourself a disservice because even the little, like you said, one-liner, one little bit I feel like it's the same with trainings and stuff like that. As long as I walk away with something, the purchase was worth it, even if it wasn't what I went into it hoping to learn, which
Right.
I think we're all used to that little bit.
Hmm.
Okay, so aside from your killer brow skills, you've also built a whole other world of us connected brow pros, your online community, and just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like you're so great at connecting others together and like building and lifting us all up, which I rave about to anyone who will listen. And we actually met in person for the first time at a trade show in SAC, which was so fun. And then more recently, we've been doing Brow Bash, which is a really fun, like intimate, small event. What kind of kicked off you wanting to do smaller brow events and then what transitioned into you wanting to have us pro trainers also do the event the same, kind of style?
Yeah. Well, so I guess we kind of skipped a little bit of the story too, but with when I came out with Broad on Studio Pro 2 years ago, it was just actually in response. I guess I didn't even realize that I was launching a whole second brand, which is Broad
Yeah.
on Studio Pro, because we have Broad on Studio, the salons, and then we were the first studio in LA to do brow lamination, and then that's how we launched Brow Down Studio Pro. I had a
Okay.
partnership with another line. I fulfilled my contract, and then within a couple days, I was approached by this Italian chemist that was like, "Do you have any interest in creating your own line?" So that's kind of like how Brow Down Studio Pro was created, and I didn't even think it was going to be a brand back then. I just thought like, I'm training around the clock. I'm training students every day. Since I'm not going to be using this product line anymore, I need my own product line.
Yeah.
And I kind of like invested back into it. And then at some point after I paid the first PO, I was like, I think I'm launching a second business.
You're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah. I almost didn't realize it. But in creating these products, I just feel like the brand has become more and more evolved into like what the industry needs. And I think that's the biggest difference with being a working esthetician
Hmm.
versus someone that's just another corporate company that produces brow professional products.
I so agree with that.
Having this product line for now coming up on 2 years, we're entering an era of the solopreneur where people are going to beauty school and then, with all the laws that are changing and everything, it's becoming much harder to hire employees, with all of the, at least in California anyway, there's all this, it becomes like very sticky to have employees now.
Okay, yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, but I feel like it's just the era of the solopreneur. So I feel like there was really a hole. Like, we launched the line with Broad on Studio Pro. It was incredibly received by all the pros. We were featured in Main Addicts that really blew us up. We were featured by a lot of pros that I had trained, and just like a lot of the community and a lot of the big brow artists like really received our line really well. And while the product sales were doing really amazing, I thought like there's something that's missing, and I think it's the community aspect of it. And I feel like, it had I see, like, brands like, big brands, like, big facial brands, big skincare brands that are having, like, these big summits or these big, like, community events, and I felt like it was missing in the brow and lash space, which is why we launched Brow Bash. So, Brow Bash is basically like a free event that we have every quarter, and we invite professionals, we invite students, and, we launched it last year, and in LA, it was a hit. Like our first one, we had like 200 people or 200 RSVPs. I think we had like 125 people that came,
I
and
love it.
yeah, so that's where we launched Brow Bash, and Brow Bash was really successful in LA. We had like so many people that came, and it was just really amazing to see a lot of beauty professionals, talk with each other, and seeing people exchange Instagram, and then we did free brow demos also. Just one thing that I see is that like it's when we the more information that we can share, the more that we don't gatekeep, the more that it legitimizes and it raises our industry when it comes to, like, brows.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I love that. I never even thought about it from that perspective, but it's so true. And it's what you see in other facets of the beauty industry that I think that you're right. The brow specific niche was severely lacking.
Mhm. Yeah, so we did the brow demo, and then, we had it, like, 3 times in a row. It was, like, successful in LA, successful in LA, successful in LA. And then I thought, like, what is a way that we can scale this? And for anyone that's unaware, we have certified pro trainers, and basically you're one of our certified pro trainers.
Yes.
But we have 25 certified pro trainers across the US that use the product, love our product, and are training on our product too. So I thought, like, what's a way to expand this? So we expanded this actually into multiple cities, uh, where any of our certified pro trainers can also, kind of do the same thing where they can host in their community. And we're everywhere in the US. We have connections. We have lots of customers all over the US. So having our certified pro trainers represent the brand and host the event is just, it's just the way that we're moving forward, and it's been so successful also. Last quarter, we did it in 9 cities. This quarter, we're doing Lash Bash. They're gonna be featuring lash lifts. We're doing it in 8 cities. So, yeah, it's become like this scalable event that is incredibly successful.
Yeah, and I love it because I feel like it's such kismet timing. I feel like because the same time that I'm seeing this a lift up and how, successful it's been and how much fun running, as having ran my own event as well, seeing just like I don't know, excitement and everything that came from it. Like everyone walking in was so excited and the funny enough, majority of the people that came were, like, people I didn't know. I thought it would be, like, friends from the industry, and it ended up being the opposite, which was really exciting, and it was so cool to connect. There was students there, and it was so fun to see their excitement for coming into the industry. I always love seeing that. And then on the other side of it, you see a downtick of big events, like trade shows not happening. Face and Body was just canceled for this year, and it's just such an interesting turn, I feel, in our industry seeing, and I think it comes from a sense of missing the connection because trade shows kind of blew up and became this beast, I guess you could say. They're just like so overwhelming. You feel really bombarded. And I think the biggest issue is the connection was lost, the community was lost. And so it's so beautiful to see in the same year that I'm noticing that, seeing these pop up of intimate events. And I'm just hoping that that continues and pushes forward and keeps growing. And because I just feel like that's what we're missing, right? Like you said, the brow world specifically didn't have that option. And now to have not only that, but kind of melding, like you said, with the lash lift event, like it's kind of melding, it's bringing us all together. And the connection is really strong. The community is really strong.
Yeah, I mean, brows are, in a way, we've obviously been doing brows. I know you've done brows for many years. I've done brows for many years, but something about this year feels like brows are commercializing, where it's like,
I
okay, people
agree.
are realizing that you have to go to a brow artist if you want your good brows, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the importance I feel like there's in the last 5 years, I think we've obviously noticed a shift, like they're a thing. They're nobody's not noticing them anymore. They're very much a reality and something people are giving a lot of focus to, but I do agree with you. I think this year specifically, it's grown from, like, before, like, nobody did anything without getting their hair done or, whatever it may have been. Because I feel like hair is, like, the most stable kind of aspect of the beauty world, and I think brows are moving into that same target of just like, I can't go anywhere without getting my brows done, and I love that it's that, and it's become so integrated with self-care.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so fun. So do you see anything else? I know you said that you're doing the brow bash for both brow laminations as kind of the demo focus of the event and then also lash lifts. Do you see yourself doing any other style of intimate gatherings or events related to brow down studios or professional pro trainers?
Yeah, I mean, we've done like a couple different concepts. Like we did Pro Beauty Affair, and that was kind of like all of my friends that are, like small business owners and like cosmetic owners. So we had that. We did that event too. And that was, I think that was last year. That was really successful. And we opened it up to makeup artists too.
Fun.
But, I feel like the magic is just keeping it brow and lash artist, you know?
I agree.
Like people that are fans of it. Even if you're, a student and just learning brows and lashes, like I don't know, I feel like this one's for us.
Yes, no, I agree. I think that's the biggest thing, the aspect of we've been left high and dry for so many years, right? Like you go to the events and you're like, oh, there's 4 booths or less of brow or lashes, and you're like, oh, it's all skincare, which is fun in the moment. And like, don't get me wrong, I love a good product. I love talking skincare, but also it has nothing to do with my business necessarily. There's nothing that I'm walking away from this training with intrinsically tied to my business. So I think that you see a downturn, especially when so many people are niching themselves and their businesses into one specific territory. It kind of gets to be like, is that even worth it?
Right.
And I'm glad that we're plugging in, something that actually is worth it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the biggest difference you would say between a big training show versus an intimate for somebody who hasn't been to either?
Well, I think the education first and foremost is like number one. And really that's how I'm building Broad on Studio Pro. It's like, do we want to scale and do we want to have like multi-outlet places? Like maybe, but I feel like so much of the quality and the education gets lost. So I always like to say that I'm building my business brick by brick. We are trying to have as many personal touch points as possible because really education and with my brand, I don't really run sales too much, but we provide a lot of education because we feel like, if people know how to use the products are going to sell themselves, so
Absolutely.
we are very like education focused. And, we're moving into a new era of business. Brown Studio Pro is moving into a new era of business where we're doing lots of school partnerships. So, Aveda is probably our biggest school. We're in, multiple doors. We're in 22 of the Aveda locations.
So exciting.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, and I feel like, it's really nice because obviously in an education environment like that, it just really aligns with Brown Studio Pro being so education focused.
Well, and I think that it's also something that I'm sure you've seen and I've seen is that brands are severely lacking. I think when we talk about the brow world and the lash world becoming more like growing in itself, is that when I was looking at products that in comparison to skincare, if you've been in skincare world, you know that the education side is very large and it's very important. Most companies require trainings before you're able to use the products. And I love that setup because I think it's so important. But on the flip side, you get your license and you can just purchase anything. You can get tint, you can get brow bleach, you can get lamination, you can get lash extension, all of these things, and there's zero information. There's rarely even like a card that comes with the product telling you how to use it. And so I love that you're a brand that's standing on education first and foremost, because especially as somebody new, you go into that and you're like, I have a client asking me to do this and I can purchase the product, but I don't know. There's nothing connecting or linking those two things. And it's a scary place to be when you're new. So as somebody who's been there, I appreciate the fact that you're putting that first. And I think that's what like really helps bring your brand front and center because it's the biggest difference I've seen in lines in general.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, I always say like there's professionals that are practicing on paying clients. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you should not be doing that. And
that's crazy.
I'm sure you hear of it too. When you talk about brow lamination with someone that may have had it or a new client, they say like, I've done brow lamination and it made my eyebrows fall out. And it's like, no, it doesn't make your eyebrows fall out. That was user error. And I'm sure that user just purchased something from, wherever. They were figuring out the timings on their own. They were using the wrong tools. They were, doing it wrong. And I just think about like that, like every single client. And while it's so minuscule to think that like one client is turned off from brow lamination, that one client whose brows fall off, she's going to end up telling all of her friends, don't get brow lamination.
Absolutely.
And it's not brow lamination, it's user error, and it's, someone that was practicing on her face, you know?
Absolutely. And I think the same thing can be said about the opposite of one person doing it themselves and it going really well and then raving about a DIY kit and just being like, that's so damaging and dangerous because what happened? She just got lucky, in my opinion. I'm like, or she has really resilient brows, and then her friend with really thin brows is going to go ahead and try the same exact thing. And you said melt her brows off. And so I think you're right. The word of mouth and way that people communicate, it's I mean, it's human nature, right? We all love gossiping or chatting with our friends or raving about a product or trying to warn our friends away from something that, during disastrous happened. And so I think we just have to lead with that. And I think the way that you can stand out as a brow artist or somebody who specializes in lamination is just being really educational focused and like explaining. And I love telling a client who is nervous about it, say that I've been doing this for years. I've had clients that have come back every 8 to 10 weeks for years getting this service done, and we've never seen a downtick in their brow hair or their health, their skin or hair health at all. And I think that that just is, us using those good products and maintaining our education and continuing our education with it all.
For sure.
I love that. What would you say is like the biggest surprise that you've noticed hosting these events or kind of building these events for a small, intimate kind of gatherings?
I think the biggest surprise is really how many holes there are or how much variance there is. You have someone that has been doing brow lamination for 3 years and they have been frying everybody's brows. Or there's like someone that just picked it up and invested in education that have only been doing it for 2 weeks and they're like crushing it and they're doing the most beautiful brows. I think it's surprising that there's like really so much variance when it comes to the way that the service is performed.
Totally. Yeah, because 'cause I'm always interested. I feel like obviously in the age that we're at, everything's online, right? And I'm always curious seeing the way that things are done or talking with other people or when they ask questions. Of course, our DMs are full of, "Well, is this normal or is that or what happens here?" And I'm always amazed because I think we're both people who love education and kind of stand on that as a basis, and I won't ever do anything without continuing my education. It was one of the main reasons that I took facials off of my menu is because I was like, I can't juggle that education on top of my brow education, and the brow education is more important to me. And I'm sure people will be like, "What do you have to learn?" But that's it. It's maintaining what should the lamination look like day 1? What should it look like 1 week out? What should it look like 2 weeks out? And so on and so forth. And what should they be doing at a maintenance appointment? And, what is alarming when a client comes back and says, this and that happened. And, what I'm seeing when I'm behind the chair with the client, it's all those things are so important. And I remember since I'm an esthetician going back and being like, I have to learn more about hair, like,
Mhm.
I didn't get that education in beauty school, and so I think that's one of the big things that sets us apart from the artist who's frying brows regularly or the other one that's taking off right away is knowing what needs to be learned, because I
Right.
think that's the hard part.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And what are the fundamental things about, the service?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. If there was a beauty pro who was kind of nervous about attending, a smaller networking event or an event caliber, what is your best tip to them to get the most out of it?
I actually think this is the best for, someone that's a little bit nervous or maybe has a little social anxiety. I mean, this is like the perfect environment. And that's also something too, when you are kind of out on your own and you're a solopreneur and you're working in your four walls of your business, aside from clients, you don't really have any like camaraderie outside of it. But really this is an ideal situation, because these are smaller events. We've LA, we have a lot of attendees. Obviously, that's where we started. Our last one we had Chicago, that was like 40 or 50 people. But we have some other locations that are, like 10 to 15 to 20 people also.
Yeah,
So I think it's like an ideal situation. And there's no expectation when it comes to these events, either. It's more just like a hang, and it's more
yeah,
just like really what it is, it's a hang and a demo.
yeah.
It's like, I didn't want this to be a super salesy event too. Yes, we are selling product, but I don't want it to be also a salesy thing too, because that also, makes people nervous. I'm not the kind of person that's gonna like hard sell. I
Yeah,
would rather, like, inspire people by way of education to purchase product, you know? So, yeah, I think this is, like, an ideal situation for someone that's a little bit nervous or maybe a little introverted, yeah.
I agree. I always when we were all discussing how it was gonna flow and everything, and even though here I am on a podcast and I have my social media and my business, I am more introverted, and so I get nervous around events. I hate public speaking, which is so funny as where I'm at in my position, but I loved that it was a 2-hour event. That was one of the big things that I thought was really fun was that it was low pressure. You know, a huge chunk of it would be demo, so if you don't wanna talk to anybody, you can just sit and listen,
Yeah.
and it was fun watching my attendees come in kind of nervous and apprehensive and not speaking to one another. And at the end of the event, them all chatting and like, exchanging social media or numbers. My little sister attended and she's actually enrolled at an aesthetic school right now. And it was so cute the way that she was just asking all these questions and she got phone numbers from everybody because she's just not sure where she wants to go at the end of her schooling and everything, and it was so fun just to see that connection, and they get excited about talking to a student who's interested in what they do, and just everybody, like, leaving friends, basically, like, a little step beyond random person sitting next to me.
Oh, yeah, no, it's so true, and I think the camaraderie is really also part of our job, you know? I think it's,
Yeah,
we do something that is so unique that you need someone that only they would understand, you know,
yeah.
what we do. So,
That's
I think
true. That's another fun part because there's always networking events, right? I think most towns have networking events for small business owners and things like that. But it's hard when you go and you're like, I'm the only beauty person here. And there's a lot of small business owners or businesses that don't take beauty professionals as seriously as actual business owners. And so I love having these events where it's like, no, this is first and foremost education, networking, and we take you seriously. This is a career.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so obviously we were talking about, healthy, safe lamination and good practices and maintaining your education. But what is one common mistake you see even experienced brow artists making?
With brow lamination?
Or just brows in general? Either one.
I think not having a consultation first and foremost, because why wouldn't you?
Right?
I feel like so many people, you know, like, I feel like brow artists sometimes can get so confident and they can just think like, "Yeah, I can do anybody's brows," and you're gonna sit here and you're gonna get what I give you because I have 45,000 followers on Instagram, you know? But
Absolutely.
really, I think sometimes the ego can get away, ego and the artistry can get in the way of, recognizing that we're service providers first and foremost, and
100%.
you know, like, our art is gonna be worn by somebody, so wouldn't we wanna check in with them to make sure that we have a consultation?
Mhm.
So I think that's first and foremost. I think another thing is, I mean, using improper tools, brow lamination specifically, like, using improper tools, you know, or tools that are you know, everyone thinks like, "Oh, I have this mascara spoolie, so I'm just gonna do brow lamination with just a mascara spoolie."
Yeah.
Actually, in all of our courses, we break down all of the tools that you should be using. But I think using improper tools can sensitize the skin and also over processing, you know, not knowing the timings or not assessing the hair correctly when it comes to brow lamination specifically.
Look, I love you, but your threading game, it's giving Pinterest fail. Stop torturing your clients and yourself with made up techniques. My hand tied threading course is where you actually learn how to do it right. Perfect tension, painless technique, and brows that could cut glass. It's online, self paced, and will have you feeling like the threading queen you were meant to be. Go click the link in the show notes. Your clients' faces will thank you. Yeah.
And then another thing I think of is I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake, but anytime that I approach a new client, I always see it as someone that is seeking loyalty. When people are looking for a brow artist, they're kind of shopping, you know, and they're looking
Yeah.
at loyalty. I think they wanna just feel comfortable in knowing that their brows are gonna be you know, that they're gonna have brow.
Yeah.
But, so that's something that I always think about, like, what am I gonna do when I'm working with the first time client that is gonna make them understand that I'm here to listen, that I'm invested in their brows, I'm gonna perform the service flawlessly, and then how do I retain this client is something that
Yeah.
I'm always thinking of too. And one of the things that I tell my team is, you know, when your client is walking away, you really have to think, is this client gonna rebook me? And if not, why not? And if so, how can I duplicate this and only be in competition with myself to better serve them every time they come in?
100%. I always say that to my students too, even when I'm like, if you're having trouble shaping, take photos of your work and critique your work in that sense of like always trying to do better. I want to be better than my last self when the client comes back in. But you're right. I love the way you said that about loyalty because it's true. I think the other thing is when you go into a niche of brows and you're saying, this is what I'm doing, this is all that I do, you kind of attract a certain clientele who have been unhappy elsewhere because they're seeking out your expertise. So they're like, I haven't been able to find this. Here you are. And I'm hoping you'll be able to reach that goal. And I agree. I think one of the things that can get in the way for brow artists is ego and saying, I am the best and I can do whatever I want. And I think that's what creates the cookie cutter brow that a lot of people are fearing, like going away from because they're like, I don't want to look like them. I want my brows to look better. And, making everything unique. Like your brow shape should be your ideal brow shape, not
Mhm.
so and so's ideal brow shape. And I think that is a big one. I think when we try to force them into what we think is aesthetically beautiful or aesthetically looks good, you shy that client away from wanting to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the hyper personalization. I always say like no brows are the same, even the two that are on your face.
Yes, I love that. That's so smart. It's so true too. I'm like, my wording is everybody has a favorite. There's always one brow that performs better or
Yeah.
that you prefer. When you were creating the lamination line, I know you said that the chemist approached you, but what in particular about your line did you see like a gap in the lamination market as far as products go? Like what drove that home?
Well, I think the landscape of brow lamination at the time was really kind of that like super smelly, like
Yeah,
very sensitizing. Like you had to close your eyes because the fumes would get in your eyes.
absolutely.
And I'm kind of responsible for making this like a thing too because I was training it so much, like how to.
Yeah.
And I remember even training, there were like certain things like that I would coach to, like, okay, this is what you tell a client if they say something about the smell. It smells like
I
fart.
remember that. Yeah.
So, and that we were kind of just making the best of what we have. But I like to think of Brow Down Studio Pro as kind of like Brow Lamination 2.0, where it's like you can get the lift with the active ingredients while not sensitizing the skin and keeping the integrity of the hair. So our hero ingredient in all of our products is aloe. So as we know, aloe is just like very gentle, very hydrating, and really I look at the history of beauty. I'm always looking at the history of beauty and the way things evolved. And one of the things that I think of is like I was around for like the Brazilian blowout when it first launched, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, there's this incredible treatment that it smooths your hair, it makes it so shiny, it makes it really like full looking, but it has formaldehydes." You know?
Yeah.
And everyone was into it because that was what was on the market. But, cut to like now, you look at all the keratin treatments that perform the same way without damaging the hair that doesn't have formaldehydes. It's almost kind of gotten so much better and so much more advanced.
Yeah.
So while Brow Down Studio Pro is a lamination, I almost think of it almost kind of like a brow lamination treatment where
Yes.
it's kind of like healthier ingredients that perform better, that are, much more user friendly and much more gentle.
I could not agree more. Your Nourish, the third step of your line is like one of my favorite products. I like have it, so that's the one I have like back stock up. Like I need as much of this as possible. I go through it. I use it on somebody post like a facial thread. It was like a little bit rough and I didn't have any other aloe and I was like, "Oh wait, no, I have an aloe product. I love this product." And I just used it as a like a post hair removal, treatment. And it's just one of those things that I feel like when you have a line that leads with integrity in that sense, you don't have to be as nervous. Like, obviously, you have to know your education and things like that, but it ultimately falls on user error versus product failure. And I think that's a big one. Whereas, as somebody, as a solopreneur, solo artist, looking like that's what I want. I want a brand with integrity so that I know that if there's a hiccup, it's on me and not my product failing me.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I always say cheaper is more expensive, like
So smart. Yeah.
if you go with a line that like is maybe half the price, and you're able to have a better margin, what you end up paying is in time later. If you work with something that's like a crappier product and then you have a client that's emailing you or blowing you up on your day off to say like, "My brows are fried. I'm freaked out. I'm gonna sue you," or who knows?
Yeah,
And go like there's so much anxiety that comes with that, and I feel like why not just,
absolutely.
like invest in good products that you don't ever have to worry about a client reaching out to you except to say that their brows are amazing.
Yep, exactly, and that's honestly truly been my experience, using the quality products, and it's funny because, like you were saying, the other line previously that you trained with, I used the line too because you were who I learned it from, and I remember being so turned off by not only the brand, but, like, their customer service, how they handled things, and the products that they chose to come out with to as you like, I guess, accessory to their main line were never anything that was, hydrating or healthy skin or hair promoting. It was more just to make it work faster and open the cuticle quicker. And like it was just damage after damage piling on top of it. At one point, I was just like, this isn't this isn't working in the way that I need it to work. Like, is result day one good? Yeah, but like 48 hours later, maybe no. A week later, definitely no. And then beyond that. And I'm just like, I know that there's certain artists who don't care. They just want that day one look good and call it good and it is what it is. But I want my client to be happy until I see her at 8 weeks later and saying, I loved it. There nothing went wrong. My hair looks great. It was shiny and silky and soft the whole time. It wasn't, crunchy and crusty and gross at any point or any stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's almost what has changed in the market is that client care has kind of come towards the front instead of it just being like a random treatment you tried when you wanted to. It's become like something that can be kind of integral in their self-care routine.
Absolutely, and, I think another thing about the line for anyone that's ever smelled, the product line, Brow Down Studio Probe's product line, we say it's like an herbal spa scent. Does it smell like a hint of treatment? Maybe a little bit, but it's very, very mild comparatively.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think about as an artist is like kind of the psychology of the brow service too. Most of the time people come in, they're very nervous to have their brows done as it is. And when I train, I like to think of another layer of comfort, another layer of comfort, another layer of comfort for the client. But if you're a new client that's coming in, that's getting something that is so smelly, it's like you'll get the first like, "Oh, smells really bad. Oh my god, ugh, gross, gross." But then what happens to the brain is that they're like, "Oh my god, it's so strong. It smells like chemicals. Oh my god, I think my skin is tingling. Oh my god, I think my brows are gonna fall off. No, this is," and then it spirals, a client spirals into that. And
Absolutely.
I feel like, like the more energy it picks up, not to get too woo woo, but I'm from LA, so you'll have to excuse me. But, like, it starts creating that energy, and then the client, like, sees their brows as something that is, like, red, angry, super smelly, very chemically, and they're like, "I hate this."
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, it's a treatment, and we want it to be treated as such. And I completely agree with you. I think that I get that a little bit with threading because threading removes the hair so well, and it removes those vellus hairs that it almost feels like we're removing too much hair. I'll have people be like, "What are you doing? Like you're taking too much," and it's so funny because it's just like. On my side of it, threading is being efficient. I'm removing all of the hairs that we want gone. To my client side, they're like, "Wait, hold up. Are you removing my whole eyebrow?" And it's a perceptive thing, and I think one of those other things is when you have to close your eyes. Hair, you can watch part of it, you can see what's going on. Makeup, you're kind of feeling there's different things to it that are going on, but with, lashes and brows, their eyes are closed and they have no idea what's going on. We're just kind of moving around in the background. And so you're right, the sensation, the sensory aspect is all comes into play and can really freak some people out.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so we know that brows have trends that evolve and they come and go. What do you think that might be a new trend or something that you see coming with brow lamination? Do you think it's going to stay the same as it is? Do you think we're going to have variations of it? Or what do you think's coming for end of this year and into the next year?
Well, I don't think brow lamination is ever going away, and I think it's now the gold standard when it comes to brow styling because it's a hair treatment, like,
Hmm.
originally when brow lamination launched, it was that, like, super big, fluffy approach to the brow, like, bigger the better, but that was also the trend back then, so that's
It
originally
was.
with. But now the way that we're using brow lamination is that we're using it, yes, for the lift, but we're also getting it to get that universal or the uniformed, like, inline, like, snatch that everybody's getting.
Yes. And
But
control.
yep. In terms of brow trend, I do feel like tints are really gonna take a step up because tints are becoming more and more popular.
Yeah.
I feel like now, I mean, it's very rare when someone doesn't get I do brows without a tint,
Yeah.
but I think, people are becoming more savvy with tints, and I think that we're moving back toward fuller brows.
Ooh, that's exciting. That's really exciting. I know that it's funny. I always love talking to you and other artists in bigger cities because I think you guys kind of hold the trends. Us in smaller areas, more rural areas where we're not in big cities, we kind of end up being behind a little bit. We don't quite catch up to the times as often, and some of our trends don't pick up with quite the same speed. I know lamination took a minute to get everybody on board, and then tinting is a whole nother avenue. And skinny brows just hit my area. I feel like they weren't really as big as I was seeing online, and I had a handful here and there, but it's fun to hear that like the full circle movement. And I think if you're an artist listening and you're nervous hearing about trends, if you're going in it with your due diligence to do whatever curated look your client is looking for and you're working really hard, you'll be able to hit any of these trends no problem. But I'm as somebody who loves a full brow, I'm very excited to hear that that's what you're forecasting.
It's a swinging pendulum, so, like, obviously, we were super, super full during the pandemic where everyone had these, like, insane brows, and they're like
Rocking what we had.
so then and then it was swinging back to thinner, 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 where it became like Gabriette then, you know, and
Mhm.
then now that people have done it, they've experienced it, they're coming back, and one of the things that I say too when, I have a lot of people in LA, we're still doing skinny brows, but one of the things that I like to say is, like, I wanna let you know that skinny brows are really beautiful, and because you're getting them professionally done, this is different than the '90s. The
It
'90s
is.
were killing their brow follicle by plucking everything out themselves, but because you're getting your brows professionally done, we can take you in and out of different styles. But one of the things
Yes.
that I like to say is because you're gonna be getting skinnier brows, just know that the maintenance is a lot more. So,
Agreed.
if you were to have a natural brow, it would be like 6 weeks to 8 weeks, it would look beautiful the whole time. When you're getting a skinnier brow, it's gonna be like 3 to 4 weeks. So, I think people that have tried the skinny brow, that have executed the skinny brow, have gotten the bad bitch photos, they're like, "Okay, I love you, but I don't wanna be here every 3 weeks," which is why kinda they're moving back into, like, the natural shape too.
Yeah. I think we go through that's the ebbs and flows of how often do I want my maintenance, and I think you're right. I think that's part of the pendulum is, like, we get a little overwhelmed by how often we're having to get things done, and then we're like, "Let's back up a little bit. Let's see what we can stretch that," and I think you're right with the lamination always being a topic. I love that's one of the selling points I feel like for it is you can come every 8 weeks, like, you don't have to see me as frequently. I mean, I always like to promote a maintenance appointment every 4 week, kind of getting them to stay at the 4-week mark, but it's a cool thing when summertime, when they don't wanna come in as often, they're really busy with their schedules and stuff, they can stretch it a little bit more.
Mhm, yeah. And then just talking about trends too, I think I see so many brow artists that are like, "Ugh, thin brows," like, I will never do thin brows, and how we personally feel about it is different than what our client wants. So I think
100%.
challenge yourself as brow artists to know how to execute every single style that your client is asking for. And then also, you can be okay to say, I know that you really want thin brows, but based on what I'm seeing, I don't think it's going to be a good move for you because I don't see your brows coming back like the way that they should after we make them thin. So I think it goes back to the consultation and saying, like, well, this could be a trend. I think you can rock it, or I think we just stay where we're at too. As brow
Yeah.
professionals, I think people not only hire us to, for our skill, but also for our perspective and our point of view.
Yeah, I had somebody come in for a thin brow, or she wanted to get her brows thin, and she showed me a few different photos of her, inspo, and I sat there with her, and I'm looking at each individual photo, and I'm like, "Well, this it looks like this, and, this one's very, very thin." And I remember telling her, I was like, "Let's start with this thicker brow. We'll see what you think, and then we can move towards this direction." I was like, "I don't think you'll ever get to this point because we would be removing too much, and we remove the integrity of the shape because you only have so much hair." And you're right. I think they're asking for our expertise. And the other thing is for a lot of people, who aren't as seasoned with like looking at different face shapes and brows and things like that, is they can look at a photo, but their brain can't translate what it would look on their face. Whereas we've seen enough of it, so we can look at that photo and look at them and be like, well, this is realistic or it's not.
Yeah, and I think brow mapping is so important too. We have a course for classic brow shaping that really goes over, how to style brows, how to map out brows, and it's very a lot of emphasis is placed on mapping. But anytime that someone wants to do a drastic shape, I'll map their brows to show them what their brows could look like. sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna do."
Yeah.
Other times they'll be like, "Yeah, let's do this," you know? So I feel like
Yeah.
brow mapping is so essential, and that's something that is I think it should be a part of every brow artist's service because it really helps us to communicate to our client what we want to do with them, so it's a good communication tool. Also, if you're someone that's just learning brows, it helps
Yeah.
you create kind of like a rough draft and before getting any wax involved.
Yeah, especially if you're more somebody who's nervous, it's almost a good visual for yourself.
Mhm.
I remember coming up, brow mapping was nothing back when I was learning brows. That was not even remotely a concept. And it was funny that even as company that, a group of brow artists who didn't have brow mapping as a skill, what we did instead was we filled their brow in with makeup first.
Mm,
And so we would show them our idea, which is exactly the same thing, you just more inward versus outward shape. And we would fill them in and be like, this is kind of the style that I'm thinking would look good for you. And it would just be like filled with pomade or something. And then we would groom around it. And then they would leave with their brow filled in because, we would retain the product in the inside part. And, I think there's always a way that we find a way to communicate with our clientele and be like, this is what it could look like and this is realistic. And I think it's just a matter of some people are walk in and immediately trust, and they're like, I trust you, do what you want. But there's always the apprehensive client who's like, I'm not really sure what I want and I kind of want to see it first. And you know hair removal is tricky, and I always say, like, little bits go at a time to try and like slowly get to their point. As like I said with a thin client, I was like, let's start thicker. We can always take more hair, we can't put it back. So there's always ways to just kind of build that trust, like you said, and I think that going that route really does build the retention as well.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so one thing we were talking about was client experience, and you were talking about, sensory things with the brow lamination and everything, and it brings me to your signature massage, the Crown Chakra Massage that you can do with your laminations. And I recently started doing a massage during my laminations, and it was crazy watching my books go. And of course, some of it is word of mouth, people just being happy with their brows, but it was crazy watching my books go from a few like it doubled my brow laminations, got really more popular, just adding that little special touch. So what was the reasoning for you kind of starting that? Was that something that was always a thing that you were always offering? Because you also have the massage oil that kind of goes hand in hand, and that's the one that I use.
Yeah, so, I mean, originally and we actually wrote a blog about this on Brow Down Studio Pro under biz tips, but it's
Okay, cool.
like the whole story of like how the crown chakra massage was born. But it's basically like I had a client come in and she had like a really bad migraine. She was going to cancel her appointment. And I was like, I'll give you a migraine massage, you
Oh,
know?
I love that.
And I was just
Yeah.
doing brows and I had kind of like this like pepperminty oil that I just kind of had. It was actually from another brand, but I just took the peppermint oil and I just like massaged her temples. And like I could just see her like melting into the chair and I just thought like, "Oh, wow. She really likes this." Like, so I started kinda doing it on all of my clients and we're obviously cleansing the area where we're moisturizing it, we're using pre and post oil and all of that already, so I thought like, "Why not expand this, make this like a moment?"
Yeah.
Now kind of like the comes with the brow lamination, and it was just kind of like something that like evolved into like part of the service, and,
Yeah.
we do like kind of like a temple massage, and then if clients are really into it, then I'll get into the scalp too, using the crown chakra oil, which has peppermint in it, and that's kind of like how it was born. I'm always challenging myself and my team to say like, "What is that special thing that you can add to like an everyday service?" Because that's luxury to me is at like celebrating the mundane and adding something special to the everyday service. And yeah, I mean, I've done foot massages also.
Really?
It's always different and it's something that I don't really market. I don't really market my crown chakra massage, but I just feel like whatever my client needs in that moment or whatever I feel like will help enhance the service, I'll kind of do. I've done hand massages. Do I want to touch everybody's feet? Like, no. Something that I felt like called to do. Like, I had a hot towel in my hot towel cabbie, and I was like, I'll like warm her feet really quick and give her like a little thing. And then it turned on to a full foot massage. She was pregnant too.
Oh,
So
she probably loved that.
she loved it. Yeah. And I feel like clients, they remember those little things.
They do, they do. I think the other thing that when you've built a relationship with the client, it's almost the way that their brows looking good kind of falls to the wayside after a certain point because they're just like, that's the standard. I know that if I come to you, my brows always look good. So it's almost like, what can I do to elevate this a little bit more that has them raving about it? Because we do kind of hit a plateau, which isn't a bad thing. Consistency is huge and very, very important, but it is nice to like plug in that little extra of just like, I'm still learning and I'm still growing to make your service better, even if I'm still hitting that baseline target.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're only in competition with yourself. And how can you better serve your client every single time?
Yes. Do you notice that the massage has any benefit towards the brow area versus just like being a benefit towards the client?
Well, it's an amazing pre and post oil for sure. It really hydrates the skin. And a lot of times people can be like, oh, well, essential oils are so sensitizing, but they're in such low doses that it's just enough to be able to smell it, but you don't
Yeah.
feel any tingling. So it is actually a functioning ingredient, a functioning process for the shaping also. Um,
I love that. Yeah, I always have them do like 3 deep breaths and inhale
oh, I
the
love
massage
that.
oil before I'm like, okay, go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. It's like almost like a calming aspect before, and then I'll move into the massage. And I feel like it almost like brings them into that perfect headspace too. Cause sometimes I feel like we have a difficult time relaxing, especially with the lamination can be like a shorter ish appointment, longer than maybe a brow shaping, but a little bit shorter than like a traditional massage or something.
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. If you could teach every brow artist one quick tip from your massage technique that they could start using tomorrow, what would it be?
You can fake to make it seem like you know what you're doing if you vary pressures. So well, a
Yes.
lot of times I've had people try it on me when I'm training and they're just like hard the whole time and it's like hard on the forehead and hard here. But if you can just kind of play with your pressure, so maybe you glide a little bit and then you increase more and more and more pressure. And then your maximum pressure is going to be on the temples.
Mhm.
I feel like getting real-time feedback also from your client, maybe
Yes.
focusing on someone, like, "Does that feel good? Does that feel too hard?" The best estheticians are people that have a good touch, so I feel like really focusing on developing your touch. If you ever approach somebody's face and they wince or they go like, "Oh," you
Yeah.
freak out, like
That's a telltale sign.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I like to also I'll apply the harder pressure on the temples and then I'll move really slow and like lightly lose all of the pressure. And then that way, I feel like one of the tips that I learned in school was never abruptly removing your hand. So like really soft release from their face so that it's not, I don't know. I feel like it like makes it less jarring.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. I could obviously talk to you for hours and hours, but we want to kind of wrap it up and come towards the end of the episode. So I figured we could just do a few quick questions,
Okay.
more fun. So the first would just be like, what is your go-to brow tool you would take to a desert island?
I love my trimming shears. They have a long visibility point, so you can really isolate single hairs, and we call them the feather trimming shears. So you can isolate single hairs and get in there. So I love the shears. They're my favorite.
Ooh, I love it. I need to grab some. That is like having. I think that's one of an underrated tool for a brow artist is having a really really detailed scissor. I
Mhm,
don't know why that's like the last thing that we've all kind of picked up on. I feel like tweezers obviously have been very important our entire careers, but brow scissors I feel like have just gotten better more recently.
mhm.
Okay, and then what is a brow trend you secretly wish would disappear?
If I hate any brow trends. Actually, you know what I wish would disappear? I wish that people would be more hyper personalized when it comes to brow shaping because people have their stamp and they put their stamp on everybody.
Mhm.
Whether it is and even the same color. I don't wanna
Yeah.
talk bad about people, but there's some people that I see, and it'll be like, same color, same shape, same trim, and it's like, I'm over that.
Well, and I'm like, tinting has gotten so good. Like, our lines are carrying more colors. Why are we all doing like a dark brown? They should like blondes and like auburn and everything is so fun to create. Why are you not doing that?
Yeah.
That or I just to add in a little bit off of that is I hate when I see the tint like completely outside of the brow. If there's like hair and it's like a millimeter away from the base of the tint, I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
The client's gonna be so confused when that finally goes away and they're like, wait, that's my brow?
Yeah.
What is a celebrity brow you would kill to work on?
I would love to work on Rosalia, who is a Spanish singer. She's a singer, and she's just beautiful. She's, like, my type of girl. She
I
is
love that.
so natural, so beautiful, and I would probably tweeze like 3 hairs off of her because she's just such an angel.
Those are my favorite clients where I'm like, "I love that you come to see me for this." Like, it's funny because I think that's almost a secret skill for brow artists is the minimal removal. I have had so many clients that come in and it's like, "I go to you because you don't remove too much." And I'm like, "That is the secret sauce, the specialty, specializing."
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that was my few little questions, and, I just wanted to give you a moment to talk about, like, where everyone can find you, your Instagram, where can they snag your lamination system, all of your good stuff.
Thank you. Well, my personal Instagram is Skin Maestro, SkinMaestro. My brand is Brow Down Studio Pro, so browdownstudiopro.com, and then Instagram Brow Down Studio Pro, TikTok Brow Down Studio Pro. My 2 salons in LA are in downtown LA and Beverly Hills, and it's browdownstudio.com, and then the Instagram is Brow Down Studios.
Perfect. I love it, and I'll make sure to tag everything in the show notes as well, so you guys can have those links directly. And then finally, what is next for you? Any events or launches that we should be watching out for?
There are so many things that are
Loaded question.
not to give too much information, but I've actually collaborated with this really big professional company. Yeah, this collaboration is gonna be iconic. We're shooting for an October launch, so you guys
Oh,
should be seeing all of the newness. Brad Studio Pro is gonna be launching new tools that are Japanese stainless steel. We're, upgrading all of our tools. We're
yay.
also gonna be launching a new category, which is gonna be super exciting. I've also just partnered with Glamcore, so we're gonna be doing something special, so look out for that for Glamcore because that's my favorite.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, and we just launched our new digital platform for Brow U, so for certification. So Brow U or Brow University, and we've just provided so much information for becoming certified. We kind of put certifications on the back burner for a little bit because we wanted to reinvent it, but we now have like a digital platform that you can become a certified artist through Brow Down Studio Pro for both classic brow shaping, brow lamination, and lash lift, and the combo brow lamination lash lift service, which is an
Love that.
combo if you haven't done it. But Brow Down Studio Pro's Brow University, we just launched.
Yay! I love that. I love online learning. I feel like the biggest thing with education is trying to like be accessible to as many people as possible. And we can only do so much in our area. So it's really fun to hear that there's going to be more reach there. Yay! Thank you so much for coming on. I cannot thank you enough. And I know that my listeners are going to absolutely love this episode. So thank you again, Renee.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I will catch you guys next Thursday.